us now to talk about today's verdict is criminal justice attorney David Shapiro. David, thanks for your expertise on this case. I want to ask you, first of all, I think everybody in America has had this conversation over the last couple of weeks, but as a defense attorney, how much of an uphill battle was this for the defense?
Well, Steve, thanks for having me on this monumental day. And what I could tell you is, as a defense attorney, this was a tough case. This was as tough as it gets, primarily because of the fact that what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd, everyone saw. There was 9.5 minutes of cell phone video and body-worn camera of him kneeling on his upper back and neck and ultimately taking his life. So when there's that type of direct, concrete evidence against your client as a defense attorney, you're just really hoping realistically for a lesser verdict. And the jury did not deliver that by convicting him of all counts.
On that very point, David, in closing arguments, the prosecution asked this jury, which was a very diverse jury, to believe their own eyes in this case. Was that the tipping point in the end?
Well, I mean, listen, I think that the jury knew what the video was, right? Everyone has seen the video at varying points. It's been impossible to miss it, whether you want to look at it or not, over the past year. But I think that's where the case started, right? We saw the emotional component, the civilian witnesses, the people that were out there in front of cup foods trying to help George Floyd to get these officers off of him. But as the case really developed, and I think really where the prosecution won the case specifically on the second-degree murder count, was through the medical testimony. There were numerous medical experts that came in and really left no stone unturned, pointing the finger at Chauvin's actions as a substantial factor causing the loss of life.
David, we now live in a world where smartphones, body cameras, security cameras, there are so many ways to record. They're everywhere. This case was so very different even than what we saw 30 years ago with the video recording of Rodney King. So how much is video evidence now changing our current justice system?
It has changed it. I mean, body-worn cameras, what we've seen, especially even here in San Diego in the last couple of years, has changed how we handle cases, how the prosecutor will handle cases, how the police department handles any complaints internally. And I think in a case like this, Steve, what we've seen is the power of video, the power of body-worn camera. And I question whether without that evidence, without the body-worn camera evidence, without the cell phone video, would Derek Chauvin have even been brought to trial, and certainly would have been convicted, and certainly would have been convicted of second-degree murder. I'm really not too sure. And I think as a defense attorney, I think we're glad, for better or worse on each individual case, it's the best thing, it's the right thing to have that type of coverage available.
Very quickly, David, I want to close with what type of impact do you think that will have on the upcoming 3 trials for the other officers?
Well, it's going to have a big impact. It's going to have a big impact really in 2 ways. First, as far as what Derek Chauvin's sentence is going to be. In all likelihood, assuming that sentencing doesn't get continued, they will know what he is going to receive from the judge. So they'll have that as a ceiling and understand that if they get convicted, it's probably going to be a significant amount less than that. Secondarily, if the prosecution wasn't able to convict Chauvin of murder or manslaughter, well, it'd be pretty hard to get the other 3 officers on an aiding and abetting theory if Chauvin ultimately was walked by the jury. So this conviction was very, very important to aid the prosecution of the other 3 officers in August.
Great insight. David Shapiro, we appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.